Hi, this is Scott Garibay, and today we're going to talk about something very interesting. We're going to talk about the absolutely wrong assumption by the vast majority of the OSR that Dungeons & Dragons is going digital when it's literally when the truth, in my humble opinion, is literally the exact opposite. So the OSR will tell you Dungeons & Dragons is going digital. The truth of it, in my humble opinion, is it is exactly the opposite. Dungeons & Dragons has never been more of a physical game, and it is increasingly a physical game, and Dungeons & Dragons is not going digital, right? So you're like, wait, Scott, this is the exact opposite of what OGGM told me, and exact opposite of what DM Bloodsworth told me, and the exact opposite of what DM James said. Pretty much, the key players on the OSR side, right? They're all, and the reason they're never going to tell you anything different. They're always going to be in lockstep, right? Because the OSR is just kind of like, oh, some corporation said X, and then I heard another OSR guy say this, and I don't have a unique opinion. Like, it's just me, right? Saying the same thing you'll get at every other OSR stop on the internet, right? So, like, DM Jams, OGGM, DM Blower. I'd love to just hear a little bit of variance from you guys rather than just getting the same noise from each and every one of you, right? It's like vary it up a little bit. All right. Okay, so why do people think that D&D is going digital, right? And you know what? Professor Dungeon Master said the same thing. They get told something by a corporation and they believe it. They literally turn their brain off after some Hasbro suit has said something, and they're like, "Oh, I can stop thinking now." No, you cannot, right? Like you gotta pay attention to the whole picture, and you gotta look at the actual, what is actually happening in the space. It's very important that you do not stop thinking. All right, so why does the OSR think that D&D is going digital? Well, the CEO of Wizards of the Coast, I think that's Cynthia Williams now, and the senior vice president of Dungeons & Dragons, the lead of Dungeons & Dragons, Dan Rawson, are both digital leads from Microsoft, right? So, so the OSR is like, that's it, it's going digital. They'll stop printing books soon, right? Like, first of all, that is outlandishly foolish to think, and the reason why is the comic book groups are way ahead of us on this. They're 10, 20 years down the road. Do you see Marvel or DC stopping printing comic books? No. And the reason why is they can't. They can't even remotely stop printing comic books. And the reason why is it is the goose that lays the golden egg. Okay? The reality is here's how Dungeons & Dragons, and actually it's exactly the same for Marvel and DC, and it's exactly the same for Dungeons & Dragons. 80% of the customers, you could feed them whatever you want. You can put whatever gruel in their bowl and they're going to slop it up, okay? And that's your D&D Beyond customer, right? They're going to make 20 character sheets on D&D Beyond for everyone they play. They're going to play with some extremely low tier, like tier 3 dungeon master, right? And they're going to be happy to get it, right? Because the reality is they just don't have that many other options, right? That's 80% of the base. And get this, the money and the momentum of Dungeons & Dragons comes from the 80% of the Pablometers, the D&D Pablometers. They'll eat whatever you serve them. Slap D&D on the cover, they'll buy it, okay? But then you have 20% of D&D, and these are your direction makers. That's you, that's me, right? We have channels devoted to Dungeons & Dragons. We tweet about Dungeons & Dragons. We live stream about Dungeons & Dragons. We do a million different things on Dungeons & Dragons. We matter. That 80% doesn't matter. The money comes from them and the momentum comes from them, right? So what are the D&D direction? So what are the D&D actives, right? The D&D premiums. That's you, that's me. What do? We determine the direction. We determine if we're going 7% to the right, 3% to the left. The momentum and the money comes from everybody else. We determine the direction, and we get listened to. Sly Flourish is one of these guys. James Introcaso, before he officially flipped to actual D&D writer. These are the D&D premiums, right? And the reality, they won't take whatever you feed them, right? They will do a lot to determine the direction of Dungeons & Dragons. And frankly, Jeremy Crawford and Chris Perkins listen very carefully to D&D premiums, right? They don't listen at all to to the D&D Pablo meters, right? They know they're going to serve whatever. It doesn't matter what's in the box. If the box is D&D on the outside, these, low activity, low burn, take what they get. You don't have to worry about losing them. They ain't going nowhere, right? The reality is, if it says D&D, they're going to take it, right? But the D&D premiums, the people who dedicate channels to this, talk about this on Twitter, right? Have live streams, have and are actively engaged in very intense discourse on multiple social medias. That's where it's at. Okay, all right. So, if you're hiring these digital leads, how can I say it's going physical? Let me give you the facts, okay? All right, so first of all, let me give you, in my humble opinion, the reason why it is absolutely more physical than ever, all right? Plim, Pop, Funko Pop. Lego, yes, Lego, right? And Lego is huge. I've been researching deeply on Lego because it's officially connected to Dungeons & Dragons now, right? It's essentially a D&D supplement product, in my humble opinion, right? The second you connect yourself to D&D, guess what? Your worlds are connected to D&D. Welcome! Dungeon Master's gonna run stories up in your worlds, period. What did you think D&D did? That's what it does. It's what's done since 1974, right? You connect your worlds, Lego's worlds, to Dungeons & Dragons worlds, Dungeon Master's gonna run stories up in them. If you put your product name on a towel, people are gonna wipe the shower water off their butts with it. That's what it does. A towel wipes your butt to make it dry, right? D&D is a storytelling tool. Wake up, seriously, wake up, companies. Do you really not understand this? And I really think they don't, right? So, Pop, Funko Pop, official D&D. Here's your official D&D characters. Pop to literally 1,000 worlds, right? Let's go all the way through the list. Lego, click, right? Magic the Gathering. They've been doing that one for a decade, right? And card, right? There you go. Here's Forgotten Realms. Here's Warhammer 40K. Here's Baldur's Gate, right? Here, what's the next one? Here's Innistrad. Stack. There's your D&D deck, right? All right, so and then the last one is Yahtzee. I was shocked at this one too. Yahtzee connects official Dungeons & Dragons to a whole bunch of worlds. You got no idea how many worlds, because nobody knew Dungeons & Dragons was building physical material connections with Yahtzee, but it is, right? And so the reality is, literally over 1,000 worlds are being connected to Dungeons & Dragons physically, with physical product, okay? So who's making product that's connected to Dungeons & Dragons that's physical? Magic the Gathering, Plim, Funko Pop, right? Everything they make connects to Dungeons & Dragons. Lego, everything they make connects to Dungeons & Dragons. Magic the Gathering, everything they make connects to Dungeons & Dragons, right? Yahtzee, every single themed product they make connects directly to Dungeons & Dragons. Dungeons & Dragons, and what's changed in 2022 is Dungeon Masters are like, oh, I don't need to do intangible campaign composition. I can do tangible campaign construction, right? The planning of my campaign starts with a 48 by 48 Lego Lego gray base plate. I could do D&D deck, right? Here's my Forgotten Realms card. Here's my Warhammer card. Here is my Dominaria card. Here is my Strixhaven card. Physical, tangible campaign construction, right? Here's my D&D Yahtzee set. Here's my Borderlands set. Go, right? Starting with physical, tangible campaign construction, right? And Pop. Oh, here's my Dristo Erden. Here's my blank DIY that I will paint as the player character, that my player character has brought painted. And here is the Sopranos. Tangible campaign construction, right? And trust and believe, the companies that are connecting to Dungeons & Dragons have no idea what they're doing. They have no idea that Dungeons & Dragons is a fundamentally storytelling product. Like its primary purpose is to tell stories, and anything you connect to it, the Dungeon Master is very naturally, very logically going to connect and start telling stories in the world that your suits connected to Dungeons & Dragons. Okay? Also, let's get into minis. $1,000 single minis, $400 single minis, $300 like minis that are entire taverns. D&D has more miniatures, more licensed sets, more dice, more physical product than there has ever been. D&D is more physical than it has ever been. But the OSR is like, it's going digital. Just like blissfully ignorant of the obvious, right? Dungeons & Dragons has never been connected to more physical products in the world. There has never been a time where tangible campaign construction is zooming past intangible campaign composition, right? Dungeons & Dragons ain't going digital. Dungeons & Dragons is more physical than ever. The OSR got it wrong. Oh, big surprise. I guess it's a Tuesday. Oh, that's my humble opinion. I'm very eager to hear yours. Let me know in the comments below. Please consider liking, subscribing, and have a wonderful millennium.